Have you ever wondered what the top 1% of the world's most wealthiest individuals know and do that the remaining and overwhelming majority do not? Is it possible that they operate from a belief system that is totally contradictory to everyone else? And that belief system is what determines who the haves and have-nots will be in society. If so, you're in the right place, because in today's podcast episode, I'm pulling back the curtains on everything related to wealth creation and how they keep you poor. My name is Nathan J. Bishop, and this is Maximum Impact Unleashed. It's not only true that the top 1% of the world's population operate from a belief system that is so different from everyone else, but it's also true that your beliefs determine your behavior, and your behavior determines the likely outcome. And in this case, whether you will be the top 1% or whether you will be everybody else. To be frank with you, the world's wealthiest people operate from an abundance and a growth mindset. And everyone else, well, they operate from a poverty mindset. And before we can plant new seeds of prosperity, we must first uproot those old weeds of poverty. So, what is the poverty mindset? It is the perverse lens through which the majority of people view the intrinsic value of time and money, causing that which is scarce to appear abundant and causing that which is abundant to appear scarce. Here's the general idea wrapped up in these three lies. Number one, that money is scarce. Number two, that time is abundant. And number three, because money is scarce and time is abundant, the best part to wealth creation is to trade your precious time for more money. Let's deal with the first lie. Money is scarce. Here's some interesting information around that idea. There is approximately 5 trillion US dollars traded on the foreign exchange market every single day. That's 5 trillion. The central banks of the world print money as they see fit, quite literally out of thin air. Less than 10% of what is considered money is actual coins and paper notes. The other 90% is numbers on a database. And whenever commercial banks issue debt, money is both created and pumped into the economy. Money is not scarce. It is both abundant and ever increasing. And an increase in the money supply equates to an increase in inflation, which is an increase in the cost of goods and services, meaning your money is worth less. You see, it's not how much money you have, but how much your money can buy. Let's explore the second lie. Time is abundant. Life expectancy is now sitting at age 72, which means the average individual will not live to see the age of 73 years old. Just think about it. How many 80-year-olds do you know walking around living their best life? Are there many or few and far between? And even if you live to see 100 years old, that is but a drop in the ocean that is considered the grand scale of time. Time is not abundant. It is scarce, and what's worse, it is unmanageable. There are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You cannot make time slow down, you cannot stop it, and you cannot make it move faster. Unlike money, time wasted cannot be redeemed. Time is not abundant. It is scarce, and more specifically, your time is both scarce and running out. And because scarcity increases the value of a resource, and time is your most scarce resource, it is safe to say that time is your most valuable resource. Let's look at the third lie. Because money is scarce and time is abundant, the best part to wealth creation is to trade your precious time in exchange for more money. This is by far the worst lie of the lot, and it is the product of the first two lies, because it suggests that one, an increase in money is equal to an increase in wealth, and two, that you can work your way to wealth. Friend, an increase in money does not equate to an increase in wealth. So, what is wealth? Wealth is having the ability to do what you want to do, wherever you want to do it, with whomever you want to do it with, without jeopardizing your livelihood. And the longer you can do that for, the wealthier you are. And the key word there is longer, because wealth is a function of time. Where do you think the expression generational wealth comes from? See, we've already established that money is both abundant and ever increasing, and an increase in the money supply is what depreciates or diminishes money's value. And time, because it is your most scarce resource, is your most valuable resource. Then why is it that so many people are so ready to trade their time for more money? Or put differently, why do people value money so much? Well, this is the answer. It is because the perception most people have of money is coupled to the time it takes them to make it. But in truth, money doesn't carry any intrinsic value. You cannot eat, live in, drive, sleep on, or wear money. Money in and of itself is useless. What is valuable is what money can buy us. Money doesn't carry any intrinsic value, it only carries speculative value. So, what is speculative value? Well, it is the value that people in the economy, key players, agree on. Buyers and sellers, banks and governments, corporates and investors. Money holds the value these key players agree money holds. When the agreement changes, so does the value of money, which means what is actually valuable isn't money, but the agreement money represents, an agreement between key players in the economy. Trading your precious time for more money is most certainly not the best way to wealth creation, because you are trading that which is most scarce and by definition most valuable, your time, for more money, that which is in abundance and therefore of low value. There are no two ways about it. Poverty is definitely a problem. But the most important question to answer is, how much of a problem is poverty? Here are some statistics. 10% of the world's population are considered poor. 51% of the population are considered low income class. 17% of the world's population are considered middle income class. 15% of the world's population are considered high income class, and 7%, just 7%, are considered wealthy. Half of the world's wealth is owned by the top 1% of the world's wealthiest individuals. That's half. And somewhere on God's green earth, there are people protesting for a measly 10% increase in wage or salary. These are the exact same people who spend in 3 days what it takes them 30 days to make. We drive cars, live in houses, wear designer clothing, and go on vacations we cannot afford. And what's worse, we believe that we are owners of all that we consume, when in truth, we are not car and home owners, but we are loan owners. And 3 defaulted payments on our bank accounts will result in bank repossession. It is said that you can pile up all of the world's wealth and distribute it evenly between all the players, all the people in the world, and give it some time, and the world will reset itself. The poor will remain poor, the middle class will go right back to being the middle class, and the wealthy will remain on top. The primary driver for this reason is the belief system that determines the behavior, and it is that behavior that determines the likely outcome. The poor see money as a tool for consumption. How can I eat, wear, live in, or drive the money I work so hard to make? It goes without saying, if you use up all your money to buy stuff, you'll be left with stuff and none of the money. And we've already established that money carries agreed value, speculative value. So if you don't have any money, you don't have any agreements. And if no one agrees with you, then you are in a tough spot. The middle class view money as the absolute value, which is exactly why we spend all of our time in pursuit of more money. We use money to increase our labor value and call it expertise. Our expertise gives us access to permanent jobs, and our permanent jobs gives us access to permanent debt. And it is that permanent debt that affords us the lifestyles we live today. But borrowing money from your future self and spending the next 10, 20, or 30 years of your life working the time back to pay back that debt is no way to wealth creation. The wealthy view money not just as a tool to make more money, but as a tool to free up or buy more time. They would rather part with their money as opposed to their time. Why become an expert, they say, when the experts are ever ready and always willing to trade their time and energy for more money? And what's more is the wealthy see money for what it actually represents, an agreement. And so even without money, the wealthy are able to form agreements, which they call contracts, and they are able to trade with banks, employees, investors, and suppliers. They call these contracts shareholder agreements, employment contracts, and revenue projections that depict a likely return on investment. As long as the poor believe and behave like the poor, they will remain the poor. As long as the middle class do the same, they will remain the middle class. And as long as the wealthy operate from a growth and abundance mindset, they will remain the wealthy. God gives seed to the sower and bread to the eater. Because if he gives seed to the eater, he's likely to consume it in the moment and be left unsustained. So God gives him bread. But to the sower, God gives seed because he is willing to forego the pleasures and the immediate gratification of the moment and sow a seed to reap a long-lasting reward in the form of a harvest. Here's an interesting question to ask. Where does the toxic idea that is the poverty mindset, where does it come from? Or maybe the question to ask is, who does it come from? When we are young, our parents teach us all we know about the world. But where did our parents get their ideas on wealth creation? From their parents? So where did their parents get it from? Could it be possible that the information we have around wealth creation is systemically passed down and disseminated to the masses? In 1903, John D. Rockefeller founded the General Education Board, and that very establishment has severely impacted and influenced the current educational system. But prior to this, John D. Rockefeller was an industry titan. He dominated the oil industry. And after crushing his competition in the oil sphere, he turned his attention and resources to education. And that's how the General Education Board was established. He decided he would solve the problem of poverty. And how would he do that? By upskilling the poor, giving them skills so that they could go into the labor market and trade their time in exchange for money, on the condition that these skills were all related to vocational trades. The trades and the skills John required for people to work in his factories. Now, were the poor upskilled? Yes. Did they benefit? Yes. Did John benefit? Absolutely, in orders of magnitude. I'm not trying to suggest that this was John D. Rockefeller's diabolical plan to take over the world. All I'm trying to point out is that the educational system is heavily impacted and influenced by key players in the economy. In my own country, in the year 1953, the Bantu education system was implemented. This Bantu system standardized the level of education that Black South Africans would receive, ensuring that they were upskilled in the area of manual labor. This system was implemented by an apartheid government. Friend, what we believe isn't what we believe by coincidence, but by design. Here's what we are taught: that the most important investment anyone can ever make is in themselves. And the way you do that is through an education. And while I agree with that, it's also true that the majority of the curriculum that is taught by schools today is influenced heavily by key players in the economy. Just ask yourself the question: how many permanently employed people do you know who exist among the top 1% of the world's wealthiest individuals? If none, then why do we rely entirely from the education we receive from these institutions to become wealthy? This is the definition of a flawed logic. Did you know that the exact same part of the brain that is used to process physical pain and trauma is the exact same part of the brain that is used to process psychological pain and trauma, which means the brain cannot differentiate between a broken arm and a broken heart. Now, if someone is suffering a physical trauma like bleeding from the neck, it is much more easier to help them because we can see the problem with our naked eye. It's easy. You could just give that person a band-aid to stop the bleeding. But if somebody is suffering psychological pain and psychological trauma, it's much harder to help the person. And that is because to see a psychological problem, you need to see with more than just your eyes. The poverty mindset is much the same. Most people who are suffering from a poverty mindset don't even know they are suffering. And that is because most people associate poverty with absolute poverty. Now, absolute poverty is very obvious. Lacking access to the basic necessities of life, like food, water, shelter, and security. But the poverty mindset is not so obvious. And that's because someone suffering from a poverty mindset could still have access to the basic necessities of life. In fact, though controversial, someone suffering from a poverty mindset could be considered rich. Now you've got to be asking, Nathan, are you crazy? How can someone who can be considered rich be suffering from poverty? Great question, and here's the answer. Sacrificing your quality of life in pursuit of a better standard of living is no improvement at all. Losing who you are to make money is a net loss to you. But enough theory, let's look at some of the actual symptoms of someone who is suffering from a poverty mindset. If you have too much month at the end of the money, if it feels like money doesn't come to you but flows through you, and the only way you know it came is from the bank notifications you get on your phone, if the only position you occupy in the economy is consumer, one who makes money to spend it all again, if your retirement plan is a plan you didn't even come up with in the first place but was given to you by your employer, if throughout your career you received multiple increases yet still struggle to make ends meet, if you didn't get paid this month and that would severely impact your life, it is because you are suffering from a poverty mindset. You are one missed paycheck away from broke, and you cannot afford for anything to happen outside of your budget, and that's assuming you budget. Your expertise affords you your permanent job, and your permanent job affords you permanent debt, and your permanent debt is what affords you the lifestyle you live today. You have not earned your way of life, but you owe because of your way of life. Now, I am not saying this to attack you, but to point out to you that you are under attack. The enemy is the poverty mindset, and the victim in the story is the person who you will be years into the future. 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old you. That person is relying on you to make the right decisions today. And finally, there's the hero, which the truth is, if you are not your own hero, then no one is going to be a hero for you. You are going to have to take control of your life and grab your destiny by the horns. Of all the things you can do with money, there are only two relationships you can have with money. Either you work for money, thus making you a slave to money, or you make money work for you, thus making money your slave. I want to end this podcast episode by telling you a story from the Bible, the story of Joseph. And hopefully, this story will tie in the point I've been trying to drive home regarding a poverty mindset and wealth creation. Joseph, the son of Israel, formerly Jacob, was gifted with the ability to interpret dreams. When in jail, word spread that Joseph was able to interpret the dreams of the wine bearer and the baker. And when Pharaoh had a dream that he believed was truly significant and held great importance, and no one in his court could interpret the dream, he called for Joseph. Get me the boy and let him interpret my dream. When Joseph arrives, Pharaoh tells Joseph his dream. Joseph, I had a dream, and in this dream, I saw 7 fat, healthy cows, and next to them, 7 scrawny, diseased cows. Then I had another dream. I saw 7 tall, healthy stalks of corn, and then I saw 7 scrawny, withered stalks of corn. What does this dream mean, Joseph? What was unclear to everyone else was clear to Joseph, and Joseph interpreted the dream. He said to Pharaoh that the 7 fat cows and the 7 healthy stalks of corn represented 7 years of abundance that would be experienced throughout Egypt. And that during those years of plentiful and abundance, that Pharaoh should be mindful for the next 7 years that are coming. And those 7 years represented years of famine and nothingness. He cautioned Pharaoh to ration out his resources in the years of plenty to accommodate the years that would come, and those years would be years of famine. The most important part of the story isn't that Joseph was able to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, but what's to come next. Not only did Joseph tell Pharaoh and the Egyptians what was to come, but he also sent word to his mother, his father, his brothers, and to his countrymen. 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. The Egyptians, who were not related to Joseph by blood, who were not his countrymen, heed his advice. But the Israelites, his family and friends, his countrymen, they saw the 7 years of abundance as an opportunity for consumption, and they lived only for the moment. But what was to come lasted longer than just a moment, while the Egyptians, who were not Joseph's family or his countrymen, heed his advice, and they rationed their portions in leeway of what was to come. When the 7 years of famine came, Egypt and Pharaoh were more than ready, but the Israelites had nothing left. And so they liquidated and sold everything they owned, their property, their equipment, their tools, and it got to the point where they sold themselves into slavery to the Egyptians. Let's do a full circle. Of all the things you can do with money, there are only 2 relationships you can have with money. Either you work for money, thus making you a slave to money, or money works for you, thus making money your slave. The poverty mindset is a lie. Money is not scarce. It is both abundant and ever increasing. And an increase in the money supply results in a decrease or a diminishing in its value. Time is not abundant. It is both scarce and running out. And because scarcity increases the value of a resource, time is your most precious and most valuable resource. And finally, the best part to wealth creation isn't in trading your precious time in pursuit of more money, but in doing the complete opposite. Trading the money you make to buy up more time by buying the time of others who are willing to sell it. Over the next 11 episodes to this season, I'm going to be unpacking the 3 factors that are preventing you from living an exceptional life in line with your full potential. And they are the poverty mindset, the financial fallacy of employment, and the curse of mediocrity. I'm also going to shine light on what you can do to overcome these forces. My philosophy is simple: it can be better. And adopting a better way to wealth creation will make life a whole lot better. I'm your host, Nathan J. Bishop, and this is Maximum Impact Unleashed.